Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being on our program. So I am really thrilled to bring aboard individuals very strong in the sense of curiosity and willing to take on a project that no one has done, at least in this group, to my knowledge, of the idea of putting a high altitude balloon and launching it out of probably here in California and looking at the goal of making it go around the world. It's not just a matter of launching it, but also a matter of tracking it. And it gets very technical in that area. We're hoping to get a lot of individuals involved in organizations, possibly around the world, to help us track the balloon that we're doing, because it's sending down signals. And again, I don't want to get technical on it because I'm not the expert on it. And we're going to talk to some individuals that do have the background in it, very diverse backgrounds in their own job world. I'm really happy that they were willing to come together and help us put this project together. Let me introduce the four individuals. Let me start first with Linda Sauter. Linda, how are you doing? Thank you for being on the program.
Okay.
We look forward to having you also give your insights into the project as well. Our second individual we have involved is Jenna Canillas. Jenna, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Armando. Thank you for having me on today.
Great. Very interesting that she has a college degree in teaching, and she's also doing these projects as well on the side. We're going to learn more about that as well. And another person that I just enjoyed having him on a previous show, Craig Douglas. Craig, thank you for being on the program.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Craig. And last but not least, one of the individuals who's sort of spearheading this project is Mr. Dale Kurthan. How you doing, Mr. Han?
We're doing just fine, sir.
Okay, well, you know, this idea came a little bit in connection to a discussion between Craig Douglas, Kurt Hahn, and myself. The question came up, can we do this? Can we, if we sponsor this project, can we put up a balloon and make it go around the world? And everybody scratched their heads and said, we don't know. But we passed on the information, and the four of you have accepted about other individuals who are coming on board as well. So I'm going to sort of ask each one of you to share your perspectives on this project that for now, we're still seeking for a name for it. We're calling it the Project AFSP-S3P-1 Engineers Balloon Project. Sounds very military. It's not. It's not. It's just a personal project with your group. But we'll find a good name for it. So let's begin. First of all, Linda, what's your thoughts on the whole idea of putting a balloon up and sending it, or at least trying to put it around the world?
I just think it's a fun thing, a challenge I didn't know you could send a balloon up and have it circumvent the world. So I think that's just kind of the fun of it.
What do you think the chances of that project succeeding is?
Well, I think it's pretty good.
What makes you think that?
Well, we've got the good group here. Craig rather has done a lot of research on this. I'm impressed with that. So I think it's just a fun challenge.
So did you ever think of the idea that you would ever be involved in this?
No.
So what would you like to see the outcome of the project?
I'd like to see the balloon go around the world.
All right. Thank you very much, Linda. We have next Jenna Canillas. Jenna, your perspectives on the whole idea of the project and why you got involved.
Well, it was really Kurt, brainchild, and he was intrigued, I think, by recent events about balloons and what's happening to them. And so he just approached us one night and said, I want to send up a balloon. And we all said, okay. And so then we started really looking at what it would take to do that. Kurt had kind of some ideas about different roles we would take. And I'm a researcher. That's what I do. And so I offered to do kind of the research side of it. And I was just very curious about the whole affair and, the technology involved, the mechanics involved, just the ability to send an object up into basically, subspace around Earth and be able to track it. I do have some APS trackers, personally at home. And so I was wondering what would that look like to be able to follow this balloon, even though it's left our airspace and it's over some other continent and region, and how would we get that information? And there are so many opportunities now to use technology in digital modes to be able to track that. And we actually have a personal friend in Poland who we've been talking about this, and hey, when it goes over Poland, would you be able to, let us know and somehow get it signaled to us? So lots of really good international connections and a global community that just comes around these types of projects.
Thank you. Craig, same question to you. How did you get involved in this project?
We had heard about the ham radio club balloon that got shot down. I said, "What, ham radio clubs have balloons?" Every weekday we meet at McDonald's just for coffee. It's like our social hour in the morning. And Kurt was there. A couple of other members was there. I had heard from Linda, "Hey, did you hear about this ham radio club?" Being the newsletter editor for our club, I'm always looking for new stories to write about. So I thought, okay, I'm going to find out about what happened here. And then we started talking and talking. Wouldn't it be fun if we did something like that too? Get a balloon up, see if we can make it go around the earth many times, not just once. I want to see that balloon go around and around and around. So it'd be a lot of fun. So, and then just one thing led to another. And the more people we talked about, of all the articles I ever wrote in the newsletter, it seems like the balloon story has gotten the most interest, because I've gotten people all over in the club that want to learn about this, become involved with it and everything. So it's just turned out to be something that might look like a whole lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for that input. Mr. Hahn.
I guess I'm the one to blame. It is the challenge of the doing that intrigues me. Having never done anything like this before, can I do this? That's what started me. It's the challenge of the doing. I'd rather try. I'm not trying to defeat the purpose, but I'd rather know it didn't work than no, I never tried. It's the foundation of learning, can I do this? And I say I mean us, not just me. There's a lot that I don't know, which is why I needed the help. That's why I want to do it.
You know, in my world of many different kinds of interviews, one sentence keeps coming up over and over again, regardless of the background of what we're talking about. And that is to be a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
And I sense that the four of you are exactly that you've taken on something that you've never done, and you say, well, you really don't need to. You have your established backgrounds, and yet you're willing to say, hey, let's give this a shot. And you're all from different backgrounds.
When I first happened to hear that the balloon that got shot down, I happened to hear it on the radio, and they said it was a ham radio club's balloon, and I thought, what? And so I told Craig, so for the newsletter, but I thought, who knew hams had balloons that went up? I didn't even know you could do this. And it's that whole concept of the ham radio community. You know, there's a lot of things that have been developed by ham. So
and we're not talking about the cooking hams, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about radios. I just want to clarify that. We don't people think this is a cooking class. No. We're talking about what does ham stand for? Somebody tell me that one.
It's not an acronym. It comes from 100 years ago, when amateur radio operators started joining civil defense and civil preparedness. The people that were the most experienced in using radios was the military and the government. And a common expression to call somebody who doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about on the radio, they would call him a ham amateur, a real ham. Apparently 100 years ago, that was a common expression. The amateur radio operators heard the expression and they adopted it, not realizing it was an insult, and it has stuck ever since.
Got it. Thank you for that historical background. So here we have four hams, professionals. I'll call you guys by definition, by default. Okay, so what's going to be the steps? In general, what's going to be sort of the phases that we're going to go through in order to get this balloon launched? And we're not going to go technical, not yet, until we have an opportunity to show it to the audience. But sort of in general, what are the phases we're going to go through?
Well, if I may, I've got most of the materials now. It's a function of I'm waiting for a couple of our members to come back to actually start construction, because both of them insisted, don't build a thing till we come back. And then you got to figure out, once it's built, which is a whole set of problems unto itself, then you got to figure out how to track it. That's what Craig's been kind of doing. and Robert, Jenna's husband, have been trying to do is how to physically track it via radio. And then where and when do you launch it? I don't want to launch it over LAX. That creates a whole other set of issues, which means you got to go someplace. I don't want to use the word isolated, but somewhere and launch it. And then away it goes.
Okay, so I have a question for the group. The day that we have to launch the balloon, how do you envision that day?
Well, I envision that day as a exciting day when there's a lot of anticipation, and we've done the hard work of actually putting together the actual physical apparatus for the balloon. We've also done the research weather-wise. We want to make sure that the wind currents are right, the air temperature is right. We need to be in a place where it's out of a flight path so that it doesn't get accidentally, sucked into an engine somewhere. But that we have a clear signal, maybe test the equipment, make sure it's sending out the signal before we release it. And then, of course, you don't want to fill the entire balloon because as it rises, it will expand the gas that's in there. And so having the right amount of gas so that we make sure it actually rises at the right rate and to the right height. And then from there, it's, anything goes. It's really up in the air. Pun intended, about what happens. And that's the exciting part. It's like, where will our balloon take us? It's almost like we're going with it because we're receiving the signal and tracking it and following it in real time, which is super exciting.
I have a question for Linda because her background is in photography, but in a different field. Linda, what are your thoughts about the possibility of putting a camera on the balloon?
Oh, that's a good question because it'll be so high that I don't know that we could see much other than maybe the curvature of the earth. That would be kind of interesting, but it's all a weight issue. You can only have so much weight on the balloon. So I think between the solar panels, Arduino and all of that, I think we're going to be limited, but it would be kind of interesting.
I think it would be very interesting if possible. Craig, you've been accumulating a lot of information as well. What do you see as the issues and what needs to happen in order for this to be successful?
Testing. I'm both excited and a little, I don't know, in search for a better word, paranoid. I want to, on the day of, I want to make sure it works, test it, make sure it works, make sure it's ready to go. And even up to the point of letting it go and floating up into the air, I'll be a little paranoid because I've watched what happens if there's a lot of crosswind. Is that whatever the payload is, it's if you let it go and there's a lot of crosswind, it's going to drag on the ground first before it hits any height. I just imagine looking at that and going, it just got torn apart. There it goes up in the air. I hope it still works. So I'm a little excited and I just want to, and a little paranoid at the same time because I want it to work. And so that's the way I feel.
Well, I'll remind you of one small thing that might help with your little bit of paranoia. Craig, I know that you were always dealing in aircraft and you're an aircraft mechanic. Remember, if it crashes, there's no passengers in it. So just sort of taking some of the pressure off of you. I know that's real.
Pride lost.
It wasn't that. So, Mr. Hahn, what do you think our chances are of being successful on the first launch?
Pretty good. I have 10 balloons. It's the cost of the payload that I worry about. I figure if the first one works great, the second one should work better.
I have one technical question, and I don't want to get too much in depth because into the future we'll do the show again and get more details on how it works and how people can get involved in this project no matter where they are in the world, especially them helping us to track it as well. And the idea is that what raises the possibility of success, and do we have to have success on the first turn?
No crashes allowed, Craig.
Unlike Kurt, I want success on the first try. It's got
Exactly.
to go around the Earth at least once. I don't
Right.
want to hear about it, how it went up and got snagged in the trees over there. Okay, that's the way I
Yeah.
Okay, so failure is not an option.
yeah.
So I want to see that altitude of 26,000 feet or something on the APRS.
Oh no, 60,000 to be
60,000. Ooh, okay.
Ow.
However, remembering as an educator, I have to point out that fail stands for first attempt in learning. So if we do have a failure, what we do is we learn from it and we improve our methods and then try again.
So we're not going to get crushed totally if we launch the first one and it just doesn't work.
Well, Kurt has 10 balloons. We have at least 10 tries.
Well, only one kit though.
Yeah, it's the solar panels and the Arduino and all of that stuff.
However, once we have the the payload with us, we can see what it's made of and reverse engineer it, and then we'll be able to come up with our own version that costs a lot less than buying the commercial version.
That's my goal.
What's not in the project as of right now that you think maybe we should add to the project?
For a camera, you're talking about something that has to be, that records the event, not transmits the image. And it's been done before with GoPros, and it has to be recoverable. This current project, the balloon's going to orbit until it degrades, and it'll be no telling where it ends up. Middle of the ocean, middle of the Arctic, middle of the Canadian wilderness. So camera is up and down, recover it.
Yeah, and I have a GoPro and they're pretty heavy, so I would back off on that one as well.
That's what I was visualizing, the GoPro, but yeah, they're heavier.
Yeah, they're heavy. There's no kind of a camera where you can adapt it and you can see live, and it, when it degrades with the balloon,
I'm sure there is someplace.
Okay.
Some geek in this world somewhere has done it. You just got to find the geek who's done it.
Or some geek is devising it or planning it.
Okay,
I think this would have stirred up a lot of people thinking about doing something like this after all this notoriety.
But also remember that it's going to be solar powered, and there's a limited amount of power, and it's only going to be active during the daytime because that's when the sun is charging the solar panels. So at nighttime, we're going to have a zero communication period. So if we add more technology to that, like a camera or something else, it's going to take more power. And I'm not sure that those itty bitty little solar panels are going to be able to take that in this particular project. But what we learned from this project, we may be able to use to do something like that in the future.
Is there any contact information that our viewers can access so they can learn more about the project, the stages that we're at, and maybe how they get involved in helping us track it, even if they don't have background, as ham radio operators, but they can help us track it and document what's going on?
Yeah, use my email, oscssw@juno.com. oscssw@juno.com.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. And we look forward to it. And I know that all of you and the team that couldn't join us in today's show, that I know that the team that is involved has also very receptive of bringing in new information and also bringing in new contacts for anything that can help us with the success of the project. Well, we're closing today's phase introduction to this beautiful project of the high altitude balloon that will be sending out signals that will be going around the world, being tracked by different groups, individuals, by clubs, or anyone that wants to get involved and just learn more of how they can do the project themselves as well. With that, I'd like to close the show by asking the individuals here that first, what are your thoughts on the project and your closing statements?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting this done and getting it up in the air. That's the way I feel.
I think it's just going to be really interesting. I'm curious to see how high it goes and where it travels.
Yeah, I'm really excited to follow its voyage into high Earth, high altitude currents up there, and see where the winds take it.
I'm looking forward to it. It's a new challenge. It's a new challenge.
Do we have a proposed launch date as of right now? And of course, it's not in cement because there's still a little trial and errors that have to go into practicing. But is there any possible launch date?
I hope no later than late May, when we're able to get this project started. The building part will be should go fairly quickly. Testing, I want to make sure it's absolutely 100% working. So no later than May, or hopefully not as far long as the June. That's what I anticipate.
And we'll do another show where we're going to go back and keep track of where we are in the phases of the testing and involvement, and what worked, what didn't work, and we'll share that technical information with all our viewers as well. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for being part of the project as well, to be bringing your curiosity, your energy, your knowledge into the project. And we're going to stay with that philosophy as well. Failure is not an option. And if we do, we'll keep trying until we get it right. That's what I see as the other aspect with that. So again, final statements. We'll start with Jenna as we're ready to sign off.
Well, I'm just really excited about this project. I think it'll bring together a group of people with various expertise and in a single common goal. And I look forward to a successful launch and being able to track where our balloon takes us on that voyage in the high altitude atmosphere.
Thank you very much. Linda?
Well, I just think it's an interesting project and a new challenge. And so I'm curious to see how it works out.
Craig?
I would love to see the day when we're all gathered around in the same room, maybe at McDonald's, a restaurant, someplace, all gathered around in the same room, when we see that balloon finally cross the California coast and makes its first complete trip around the Earth, and we can all scream and yell and jump up and down in celebration and pat each other on the back. I want to see that day come.
Mission Control.
Mr. Hahn?
Okay, well, first off, I want to thank the Northern Illinois Bottle Cap Balloon Brigade for providing the leads to get this whole thing started. And to quote Star Trek, I want to boldly go where everybody's already gone before, but I've never been there. And I don't want this to be my 5-year mission. Yeah.
Well, again, I want to thank the 5 of you who were on the show today. And here's my little tidbit of information. I have a family member who got a Oscar for being in a balloon, fictitious, of course, 80 Days Around the World. Mario Moreno Cantinflas is in my family. And when I first saw the movie, I was watching it from that perspective. So I've always been sort of connected to the idea of a balloon going around the world in 80 days. We had to thank Jules Verne for that one. So to me, it's an added part of my life to see this project, to have a little tidbit idea of doing it, and then to see such a wonderful group of technical individuals like yourself, stretching yourselves, coming up with let's do it. We don't know how, but we're going to do it. I think that's really special. So I want to thank all 4 of you for that idea. And also thank you very much to all of you for being on the show.